Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 961. See, I started off with knight f3 here, the Reti opening, and my opponent goes knight c6, which is called the black mustang defense, I guess, because that's a black horse there. Anyway, interesting way to play. I think black did fine in the opening. I'll show a little later where he started to go astray. Anyway, I continued with c4. You can see that e4 and d4 are also fine ways to play. It's just that I wanted to play a flank opening, starting with knight f3. That's usually the idea, the Reti. So I continued with c4. He went e5. I went d3. d3 is a slight mistake for me. If I'm worried about this pawn coming forward, I have a perfectly good move in knight to c3. You can see that's the top choice there. Just develop another piece, stop that pawn from coming forward. It's probably a better way to play it because I may choose at some later point to play e3 and d4 rather than go with d3. So this is not a very flexible move. Knight c3 or knight c3 is a much more flexible move. So anyway, but I went d3, and now knight f6 is a good move for black, but also what he played, even though it's not in the book here, is a reasonable move as well. Bishop b4 check. I block with the knight, and then he went ahead and takes. Once again, knight f6 is a good move, but actually still is reasonable for black as well. These positions we've been going through here are all about even. Let's see, he went d6 here. I went g3, setting up the typical fianchetto of the Reti setup here. Let's see, he went knight g to e7, went bishop g2, and he castled. And you see we're back in the opening book. Actually, we are finally out of the opening book after I play e4. I wanted to back up. I wanted to mention that e4 has been an idea in this position for a while. Like when I played g3, instead of g3, I could also have played e4 at that point. So let's go forward to the position in the game where I actually played it. Forward. Yeah, I put the knight there, he castled, and then I played e4. And then we're really out of the book at this point. But this is an interesting setup. This pawn triangle is the same triangle you get in the Botvinnik setup, but I have this pawn on c3, which also covers the hole on d4. So overall, this gives me a really strong center, which is going to help if I want to maneuver my pieces over to the king side and attack on the king side. This strong center can be in something that gets in the way of black's pieces. So it's an interesting way to play. My knight is a bit in the way. Typically with the Botvinnik setup, you want the knight on e2 so you can push this f4 pawn immediately and get rolling. And the other idea with the Botvinnik setup is to push with the b and c pawns and open up the queen side. That's not so likely here. I've given up. Well, there is no b pawn, but I suppose there are some ideas of maybe putting the rook on the b file and pushing these queenside pawns forward. But more likely, this is a setup where you hold the center and attack on the king side. Anyway, right here is still pretty much an even position, but right here is where black starts to make the first of his mistakes, which lead to an advantage for white. After a few slight mistakes, it kind of accumulates. And b6 is the first one. The chess engine would strike right here with f5, and it makes sense. I haven't castled yet, and I have the long-term advantage of the bishop pair, so black doesn't want to just sit around and wait for me to develop and open up lines for my bishops. He wants to strike right away while my king is still in the center and I haven't deployed the bishops yet. And his bishop maybe could take back there and develop on the on the king side. Instead he went b6. Actually, the bishop is going to develop on the king side anyway, so b6 is not about opening up lines for the bishop. It really doesn't have a lot to do on the queen side. I guess it's more about preempting my rook b1 move, so we can develop the bishop without that being a tempo, but that's just a slow move. So slight advantage for white at this point. I castle, he goes bishop g4, I kick the bishop, and now another slight mistake. He takes, and that just gives me the bishop. I have two unopposed bishops now, and he has two knights, but that's a pretty significant advantage for white, particularly later in the game. I just have to get through this middle game and into an end game where things open up, or maybe opening up lines in the middle game too for the bishops, and there will be quite a force to be reckoned with in this game. So yeah, he shouldn't so willingly give up the bishop. He should have just retreated here, and this is still a reasonable position for black. But yeah, bishop takes f3, another slight mistake. Then let's see, he went rook b8 here. Maybe he's thinking of trying to undermine my center by pushing with b5. I went to queen e2. I'm getting out of the way of the f-pawn so I can push my f-pawn forward. And now he strikes with f5. But this seems to be a little bit mistimed. In fact, Chess Engine already at this point starts to give white a winning advantage, although I don't keep that. It's hard to play exactly the best moves all the time. So, but I have a pretty good edge from this point forward up until, well, I make a mistake. So we'll get to that point in a bit. Let's talk about f5 here. The Chess Engine likes taking immediately. One point is that he has to take back with the rook, because this knight is tied down defending this knight now. That exchange opened up my bishop onto his knight, which is otherwise undefended, so he has to take with the rook here, and then it wants to play f4. So it just wants to throw in that exchange first and then play f4. But the idea is the same. You're opening up lines for the bishops and they become more powerful. I played f5 immediately. Oh, he played f5. I played f4 immediately instead of exchanging first. So he got to take. He takes f4. But this helps me bring a bishop out, so I'm not too worried about that. Then he played knight g6. And now there's another cute finesse here. This keeps the biggest advantage for white. Actually leads to a material edge. You know, I just was saving my bishop and dropping it back. But I can actually take this pawn now. And so the first point is that if he takes off my bishop, which he can do with tempo on my queen, I take back with the rook, and I just get to hold on to this pawn. So I just stay a pawn up, and also his knight is hanging over here. He's going to have to do something about that. And then on the other hand, if instead he takes with the rook, this is what I missed. Well, actually, I don't think I thought about this much at all, but I certainly didn't see this idea. Queen e6 check is a fork. I guess he can drop his rook back, but then it'll be in a nasty pin here. And well, I just can move my bishop out of the way with a tempo on his queen and take the rook. Or let's see, the queen comes over to defend. Yeah, it looks like I'm just getting a lot of momentum here for my attack. So anyway, that looks really strong. Anyway, I just retreated. So, but that was e takes f5 would have been a nice way to get a clear advantage. So bishop to e3. It's not a mistake. It's still, well, it's a mistake in the sense that it's not the best move, but it still keeps an advantage for white. Let's see. He played f takes e4. I get my other bishop to a good square. He goes knight c to e5, centralizing his knights. So he's starting to put them to work. Let's see. I go king h2. There's a problem with this king h2 move that comes up later, but anyway, we'll get to that. He goes queen e7, go d4, kicking this knight away. I just noticed that my queen controls or defends a c-pawn, so his knight has to retreat at this point. Knight went back to d7, played bishop to d5 check. He went to king to h8. And I brought my rook to the center. So all this is keeping a pretty nice edge for white here. He goes knight to f6. I go bishop to c6. I think it's an interesting square for the bishop. It keeps him from putting a rook on e8 there. So I'll have more control over the e file. He went rook f7. I go queen to d3, unpinning that bishop so I can move it with tempo. Yeah, it's not pinning. It's not unpinning. It's I'm getting my queen away from a potential queen trade, and now I can move my bishop with a threat against his queen. Let's see. He brought the b rook over to f8. I guess he decided it wasn't doing anything on b8 after all. And now I played bishop to g5. So this is my mistake. I was keeping an advantage in the game all the way up to this point. well, from where he gave it to me shortly out of the opening, he gave me an advantage with those trades. But now I give it up in this one move. He could immediately play knight to g4 check. And just as we saw in the game, he actually delayed a move. So the hard part in positions like this is to figure out what you should do. And, I looked at this with the chess engine. It really did not have any great plan here. I've got this big advantage in space and in having the bishop pair, but there doesn't seem to be any immediate way to capitalize on it. So this is one of those positions that takes patience. You've got to have patience, and you have to be alert and to try and prevent black from causing trouble either tactically or opening up things for his knights. That's I guess it's mostly tactics you have to be alert for. It's not really so much about opening, because opening favors my bishops at this point. So anyway, I looked at this with a chess engine trying to figure out what I should play in this position, and came up with this line: bishop c1, queen d8, king g2. Now that's a move. That's getting away from this knight g4 tactic, so I understand that one. Let's see, knight e7, kicking my bishop back to f3, knight f to g8, rook to e2. So I guess I'm going to double on the f file here. Or maybe on the e file. I guess I could double in either direction. But anyway, it seems like it's just a lot of slow maneuvering here, and you just have to be patient. It's not my style. I can't play that. I don't play that type of position so well. Anyway, I played bishop g5. He could have gone knight g5 check immediately. He didn't spot it in this move. He dropped his queen back. And I played bishop to e4. I was feeling pretty good about my game here, because this piece doesn't have anywhere good to go to, and I'm threatening to take the knight and take here. But now he gets his tactic in, and this is just an equal position. There's really nothing better here than to take that knight. This is in fact the best sequence for white, and it just leads to an equal position. So it's just a bishop versus a knight. My pawns are slightly messed up here, and I decided to go ahead and trade. Chess engine says queen e2 to defend here is a move as well, but all this seems to be about even. So bishop takes, h takes. I mean, well, the advantage of queen e2 is it would keep more force on the board, so give me more chances. I thought that because of this opening of the h-file, I would have some potential tactics, and I did get something later in the game, but in fact all of this should be even with the best play. So now we'll see where black messes up. Let's see, I went queen e2 now, just defending my pawns and also defending the second rank so the queen doesn't come in with check. So let's see, played queen h6 check, step out of the line of fire there. He brings his queen back to c1, down to c1, trying to stir some activity up here. So I play rook to e3, just defending things, also blocking the queen's view back so I can push the g-pawn forward. He played a5 here. I go with g5, trying to open up lines so I can get to the h-file. And now I played queen b1, and this is a losing move, although I didn't find the best follow-up. So let's see, what should he have played instead? If he plays rook to f1, this just leads to a draw. So this is the chess engine line here. I go here, rook to d1, threatening this pretty nasty skewer winning, so I have to bail out and take here. And then after he takes back, I come in with check, and that's a forced draw. So that would be a draw, rook f1. And so that was his chance. Queen b1 loses, but I have to find the right move here. And the right move for me is g4, which is a pretty interesting move. It actually has a couple of ideas. So, well, first of all, he has to start running with this king, or something similar will happen as happened in the game. Let's see, I still bring my rook over to the h-file. And then if he does something like a4, just kind of ignoring things, one idea is revealed in that rook to h1 here traps his queen. So the queen has no squares to go to here. Those are all covered. These are all covered. Yeah, so that g4 pawn push, in addition to opening up a line for my rook coming over, was also covering this retreat square for his queen. So what that means here is he can't just play any old move after I play rook to h3. He's got to deal with this threat. If he plays queen to c1, so that he can come back into the game via this way or maybe this way, then I can play as I did in the game. I can start with the check. Let's see, he can't run away, he's got a block. Then I have this check, not there. This check here. He blocks again, the king has no moves, and then I have rook to f3, right. Got confused by the all the lines there. But as in the game, he's just got no way to escape from this pin here. And he can give a few checks, but eventually I will win there. So after queen b1, I had to play g4 right away. Instead, I played rook e4, trying to get over to h3. And if he were to just start running with his king, this can still turn into a draw. He still has this idea of coming down here with rook to f1. So he had one more drawing chance. But instead of moving his king, he played rook to f5. And now I get rook to h4 with check. King goes to g8. The queen comes in with check. Oops. Oh, I played queen e6 check first. I think I could have done it in either order, but this maybe is a little bit quicker. And then I bring my rook over. So he gives one check with the queen. And I put my king over to h3. And then he was looking for a move here, but and ran out of time. But there is no move. It's actually a forced mate at this point, according to the chess engine. But, well, even I can see that I'm going to win a rook here. And his king is all exposed, and he doesn't have any threats against my king. So a pretty clean win here. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye.